Welcome to the range, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Bruley, and today we have a very special guest. You've met him before. His name is Frank Welsh, and the last time we recorded, we did a big, long segment on his successes throughout the years, and I kind of wanted to save that for kind of a special time. I figured, dead of winter would be a good time, kind of get you excited, see some kill shots and some successes that he's had over the years. And I just thought it would be a fun little episode to save for another time. For those folks who didn't listen to the previous episodes, and for those of you who haven't also, please be sure to head back and check those episodes out with Frank. Really excited to show you guys this. So if you want to look up Frank, if you have any questions about anything archery related or hunting relating in general when it comes to whitetails, black bears, turkeys, the dude is he's a wealth of knowledge. He's more than happy to help out, and so feel free to look him up on Facebook, Frank Welsh, or on Instagram, Frank Welsh. So without further ado, I present to you Frank and his wall of trophies. Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. I'm proud to introduce Mr. Frank Welsh. How are you doing, man?
We're doing. Well, thank you for that. It's a very gracious introduction.
Yeah.
Kind of funny though how time flies, and man, you just start to think about all the years that have gone by, and all the situations that we've been in,
right.
and all the people that we've talked to over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hunting stories. There's just so much stuff.
Mm-hmm. You folks can see here behind him, he's got a lot of animals on the wall there, and that's only a fraction of them. Oh, and it just keeps going. And then I'm sure at some point he'll pan. You can see all the trophies there he's got from 3D shoots, and Frank's been in the business for a long time, had a lot of success.
Kind of pan this down here.
Yeah, look at that. Impressive collection. Very impressive.
Yeah, and I just built a home here, and I actually have a 20-yard shooting range in here.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So we've got, pretty much all the, well, except for the sheep. I never got into sheep hunting, which I'm really glad that I did because it's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've
silly expensive.
Mule deer, whitetail, antelope, bear, elk, caribou, turkey.
You got some African animals too, don't you?
I do not. I wanted to go to Africa, but that we got bamboozled out of our money years ago. I mean, that was me and Danny and Travis. Yeah, that was kind of a bum deal, but no, we didn't get to do that. That was on the bucket list, and honestly, if I went there, I would go for all the small stuff. I definitely, the warthog is cool, and the Cliff Springer stuff, Diker.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I got to know a gentleman, Eric Meredith, back in the day from Rocket Broadhead. He was kind of a wild man, but he lived a very full life. He died at a young age, but he lived a very full life. He probably lived a few lifetimes, to put that just mildly. But I mean, he harvested a ton of African game, and that's kind of where I got like the itch to want to do that. So who knows, maybe, on the road or whatever. Yeah. Look at God. I was so young, dude.
Strapping young lad.
Yep. So this was, in Illinois. We've been going there since the late 90s, like 98. And, actually I have a lot of film footage of a lot of this stuff. Danny Kruger and I were slated to be on a TV show, and we were filming, and I filmed this one, and I had 2 that came through, so that's the second one. We got that on video, which was pretty cool. This turkey is a Wisconsin bird here that I got 2 years ago on our property. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Sitting in the old ground blind and made that all happen. And then this is a ram that I shot in Oklahoma on a game farm. That was kind of cool. It was a 42-yard shot. It was funny though, because you could see the shot was right there. Well, then it kept going, so it turned and it was the opposite side, and I placed another shot, and I swear we called them pixie sticks because it was like because then he turned, it looked like there was one continuous arrow going through the whole thing. So it was buried on each side. Well, they have a lot of it's almost like wool. The hair is really thick, and the penetration on there was I didn't get a full pass through shot. I normally shoot about 62 pounds, and I was shooting a Rocket Wolverine 75 grain out of that. I mean, of course, it went down. I mean, probably the first shot, if I would have just calmed down, I'd have been fine. But
and what
do you do?
And you're still shooting rocket broadheads to this day.
No, I've transitioned to Rage.
Oh, okay.
I've been shooting the hypodermic. I like the design of the ferrule. That was something that Danny Kruger showed me actually before they were even out. I got to see and check that out, and I made a transition probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh boy,
I like the hypodermic stuff.
I am behind the times on that. Whew.
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy. So you can see I look a little younger there. This is another Illinois buck in the early days. And then here's a Minnesota Tom. That was a few years back. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Came in. I think it was just like a 22-yard shot. He went about 60 yards and buried himself in. Here's a cinnamon bear that I'd harvested. What was it? I don't know how to read that date on there, because this was probably, oh gosh, early 2000s. So this was up at Church River in Canada. That was a lot of fun. That was weird because this bear, when he came in, he stood up and he was itching his back on a tree at about 20 yards. Stopped and paused at the top, and then I put the shot right where it needed to be, and it went 20 yards and tipped over, so that was pretty cool.
What's that bow you got there? It's a PSE.
That is a Nitro, I believe.
Okay.
PSE Nitro. Yeah, I was on the PSE staff for a while.
That's cool.
And harvested that. That's even a PSE quiver that's on there. Still have that laying around here somewhere. There's a Buffalo County buck.
That's a good one.
That I harvested back in the day, and this is when I was shooting for Martin Archery.
Martin, yeah.
That's that same PSE quiver, believe it or not.
HHA
that
sight.
Was fun. Yep.
I can see your cord there for the limb driver.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Like early gen stuff, because you see where the upper connector is there, where the sound cord.
Solid limb adapter.
Yep. Got that in on there, and that was a fun hunt. Here's here's a Wisconsin buck on the property. That's been 8 years ago now. Good Lord.
Right?
Time goes by quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was still shooting with Martin there. Here we go. This is a little Aoudad. It's a U.
Is that same PSE there, you think? Is that PSE Nitro, or is that something different?
I think it is. I think it is the same one. Looking at the cam.
Mm-hmm.
and I always shot a twin cam. I was never really a big fan of the solo cam stuff. And this was kind of an interesting trip. Had this buck come in. My first. This would be my first. No, that was my North Dakota mule deer,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a buddy that was with, and we were um, tracking it. I think it ended up being. I was in a ground blind. I did shoot him. He was at 40 yards, and we were trailing him. And we came around the inner part of the, because you can kind of see that these shelves that are here. And it was standing all the way across this draw.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just standing there. And I asked my buddy, Steve Gimple's his name, and that guy used to shoot fingers back in the day, and he was quite the state. He had a big presence in the state of Minnesota for a finger shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Steve, what is he? And he goes, he's 96 yards. So I was dialed out to 90, and I put a little Kentucky windage to it, and I placed that shot. It couldn't have been any more perfect, right behind the shoulder, and that's where he tipped over. And I remember Steve going, dude, that was phenomenal, and I'm like, I got lucky, but it's, back then, I mean, used to shoot 100 yards all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't, for some reason, didn't want to go past 90. I just, on my sight tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was just one of those situations. I already had a shot in him, and I wanted to make sure to anchor him before we started chasing him all over these canyons.
Right.
Trying not to make that animal suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But then from there on, I've always been sighted out to 100 yards with my equipment, comfortably, because there's a whole thing with peep height and how much clearance you're going to get with your sight, with your fletching and all that stuff that people have to be aware of, that most people are not, but something to check.
Mm-hmm.
So here's
going back to that photo there, Frank. So that's a North Dakota, that's a mule deer. The ground, like I've hunted a lot of familiar ground like that. So I had a suspicion that it was probably North Dakota, and a nice mule deer. He's got 4 points on one side and looks like he's got 3 on the other, or does he fork out on that right side?
He does. Nope, he's 3x4.
Yeah,
he's a 3x4.
But and that was, you said that was your first mule deer that you shot?
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I was so stoked on that.
Heck yeah,
I was so stoked. And then the way it went down was just kind of crazy, because it was interesting because we had like a full on the way out there was Jim Beardsley, and he shot a lot of paper targets along with Steve, and we were talking kinetic energy, and those guys shot 70 pounds and I was shooting 60. It was like 62 pounds, and so we had this whole debate on kinetic energy and all that stuff, and it was just funny that they were in it, and Jim was there too. So we were there, and I sent that arrow, and it just, it stopped at a fletching, and they both were like, unbelievable.
Yeah, 60-pound bow. And you've always been a proponent of shooting speed.
Yes.
Not like, I wouldn't say like a speed freak, but having the knowledge of, that, because everybody thinks, oh, you got to have a heavier arrow to have, more kinetic energy and have more penetration. And that's not necessarily the case, because speed plays a role. It's part of the equation in the kinetic energy factor. And I remember you've always been shooting lighter poundage, lighter arrows. You get a flatter shooting bow for when you're taking those longer shots out there. And so that is proofs in the pudding. That is an effective way to hunt.
Yep. And there's a whole recipe.
Yep.
There's a recipe for everything. And there's certain things that I've always just, try to avoid, or if I need to make some adjustments, and all that. I mean, everything now is, really it's gone to heavier arrows and going down that road. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've always been quiet on what I use. But if people want to listen and ask, I have no problems doing that. But yeah, out west, especially, I mean, 2 yards can make a huge difference. And if you make a fudge mark, or if it moves or whatever, And if it's shooting a little bit flatter, that can make a huge difference.
Right.
And then this was back in Texas. This was a morning hunt. I think I had the boar come in first and shot him, and he ran like 20 yards and tipped over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting in there, sitting in the blind, waiting, just kind of getting my stuff together. And then this,
Was
I
that
forget
Corsican
which.
ram?
Yeah, it's yeah. So this came in, and there it was kind of a package deal. So I harvested, shot him, and then that went like 40 yards and tipped
Mm-hmm.
over. So that was pretty cool. Um, long, shaggy hair on that sheep. Just really, really cool. And that boar was delicious. We actually cooked some of it up while we were there in Texas.
Mm.
So it was pretty cool.
Okay.
Pretty darn.
Yeah. So,
So
in
then,
that photo there, you said that was Texas, right? Got some prickly
yep.
pear there in the back, and so
Oh, yeah.
you
No,
got a big scruffy hog here in front of you. Looks really, really cool. What kind of hog is that? Is that a Russian boar, or is it?
it's like a feral Russian. Yep.
Okay.
Looks like a crossbred. True Russians get just absolutely huge,
Sure.
just crazy big.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we'll jump to this is my biggest whitetail.
It's beautiful.
That's an Illinois buck that I shot back in 03. It's the only deer. It's the only buck that I have in the record book. Just because I knew it was going to make Boone and Crockett, so it grosses 182 and like 4/8, and then it nets 175 and 5/8.
Mainframe 10
Yeah.
whitetail.
Yeah,
Yeah, and look
it's
at
got
those
that
brow
sticker on the
tines.
right side. You'll see that it's got almost kind of split there
Yeah.
on the brow tine. And you can see he's got a scar on his snout
Yeah.
from fighting, but under his spine, I guess there's some Amish peeps that were there at the time that used to butcher our deer, and he actually found an encapsulated broadhead under his spine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, where is it?" And he says, "Oh, we already threw that out."
Oh, shoot.
I'm like, it was a bummer because that tells a little bit more about the story
Mm-hmm.
that I really wanted to be able to keep. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just one of those. I think I have one more photo of him in a different position. Just scrolling through. Oh, there's none right there. And then we'll go back up. But just a giant.
Yeah, wow.
He had 13-inch G3s, 27-inch long main beams. He's just, that whole hunt was kind of interesting because, again, it's in Illinois, and I had hunted a morning sit, and I had a 150 class 10-pointer that came in, and I saw him coming. I had plenty of time to set up. There's like a little creek crossing down below me that, either they're going to stop, pause, and jump, or just have to slow down to slowly go through it if they want to walk it.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat the morning, so he's coming. It was like picture perfect. So he's coming. So he's getting to where there's some trees in the way, and I come to full draw, and he comes in and he walks, he stops, perfect, and I'm just working the release and just burning a hole absolutely through him, right through the lungs, and I'm just burning, working, and the release is not going off. So now he starts to move again. So I draw down, and he's at like 30 yards. I made my adjustment, and he's working a scrape, standing absolutely broadside, draw back again, and I'm working through release, and it's an overkill release. Great releases. And that's one thing, I've shot a lot of arrows through the years, and I've done a lot of competition shooting. And I forced myself to do that because you want to put yourself under the most stressful situation that you possibly can, so that when you have these moments for any type of harvest that you're going to do, that you've already been there. You want it so that you can work through that moment. I mean, it's very exciting. Your heart gets pumping and you get jacked up, and there's a lot going on. So you want to try to mimic that in your practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working release. I'm excited, but I'm like, this arrow should have been gone, and he just walks off. It was a pick cornfield that went into this woodlot that I was on, and there's acorns, and it was nice, just ideally pinch spot and stuff. And so now I'm watching him walk off, and I'm just sick because anybody who's trying to, kind of up their harvest or go for particular animals, you've spent a lot of time in the tree just to have that one encounter. So I had another release in my backpack, and I grabbed it and I put it on, and I was just sitting up there, and I was just felt so sick. I almost wanted to throw up. I was just so bummed. And I'm pretty much an up person. So, even though there's something bad happened or whatever, you got to look for the good.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sitting there, and I'm like, my head is just not in the right place. So I got down and I went over to where I was parked, and there was a bale there, and I was just shooting my bow. And Danny Kruger come rolling up in the pickup, and he's like, "What's up? You see anything?" I told him, I was just bummed. And Danny was the manager of the compound doctor at the time, and he was like, "Dude, I feel so bad. I just sold you that release." I said, "No, it's not you. It's just I must have some dirt in there or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault. And again, it's if you don't take care of your equipment, it's not going to take care of you."
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm so paranoid. I don't like to lay things in the dirt, and I don't like to do, I'm just very anal about my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "You know what, Frank?" He goes, "Just start adding 10 inches a day. Just start adding 10 inches a day. You're going to shoot something big, man." I said, "Yeah, okay, cool." I shook it off, get back in the game. So then this happened, I think 4 days later, 3 or 4 days later, where I harvested this buck. And that was kind of interesting because I was sitting in a different location, and it was a morning sit. And I got on the squawk box and the handheld because I wanted to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a hold of the guys, and they were back at the truck. And I said, "Well, I think what I want to do is just head over to the there was like a hub. There was this location where Wayne Kruger shot a 202-inch
Oof.
whitetail there like a couple years previous. Just it's got everything. It's got woodlots, and it's got all these other fields. There's corn and alfalfa and all that, and it was just a hub that came together. It was a good travel corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And then Danny was, that was going to be his spot. And I said, "Hey, what would you think? Can I go over to the hub?" And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead." I said, "I think I'm just gonna sit." Because I said, I haven't seen an adult doe for days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just seeing, young does that aren't in the cycle, and younger bucks. Just I got to change something. He's like, "Yeah, go over there." So I went over there. So I still hunted over to it. It was like a few hundred yards. Slipped up in the tree, and it was probably about I'd say 10 to 11 when I started. When I was all in and nestled in and stuff, ready to go, and I'm sitting there. It hadn't even been a half hour. It's like 11:30, and I hear sploosh sploosh down in the creek bottom. So I look around the tree because the tree that I was in was pretty big, great cover, and I look around. I'm like, "Oh wow!" I'm just like, "God, that's a huge doe." She's like 30 yards away down in the water.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of breathing hard, breathing heavy. So she's in there to get a drink and cool down. I've even seen where they'll just, especially when the chase is on, they'll just go in there and lay in the water and get going again.
Yeah.
And so she's taking her time, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, God, I mean, she's like, then you just start doing mental math. Like, God, she's probably live weight. She's like 180. She's just huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, God, there's got to be a buck, So I look around. It's a great big sumac tree. I think it's sumac. No, I can't remember what the tree is, but I look around the other side of the tree, and it's a draw that comes down, and I see him coming down. And I looked at the top, and his, because I'm looking from the top down on him. I'm going, oh my god! And I'm like, this is a shooter. So I look, so he's coming. He's going to follow the doe. So I ranged the doe. It was like 32 yards. I grabbed my bow. I knew I didn't have a shot to my left of the tree. I just didn't, and I knew he was going to come that way anyway. So I grabbed my bow, put it on 30 yards because I have, the one pin movable, which always drove Danny Kruger nuts because I don't know how you have time to move things. And I always say, it helps me. I like to be busy in that moment because then it distracts me. It just helps me focus on stuff. So I did that, grabbed a bow. I'm hooked up. I'm ready. And I'm kind of waiting. The doe's walked off now. And it feels like a forever, an eternity, which is not. And I did, because I didn't hear him hit the water yet. So I look, I creep left of the tree, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, there he is. Wow. Now he's broadside. I'm like, holy buckets. And I'm like, okay, stop looking at the horns. Just pick a spot, smoke, behind the shoulder, and it's going to all happen. He's going to walk. So he starts to walk again. So now I'm ready on where I'm looking down with the right side of the tree, and he comes, his nose just starts to hit. I pull into view, and so I pull the full draw, and he comes in broadside, and I erped real loud to get him to stop, and it was. I mean, when people say things go into slow motion, it totally did that, because I still see him today where he stopped and he's turning his head to look my way, and the arrow, I don't ever remember the arrow going off, and it just took off. It released the arrow, and he never got his head around, and it was already through him. Then he ran up the embankment into this standing cornfield, and then it was like helter skelter. There was deer just going all over the place over there. Not even over there. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, just trying to remember the last spot where you see him and all that stuff, because that's vital. Because because your heart's pumping, the adrenaline's going, and that's where always mark things. Which tree and all that, because when you get down out of the tree, it's going to be all different, and you're going to have a hard time, like, picking up blood and know where exactly he went. So I sent the arrow, and I set my bow back on the hook, and I sat down, and I had to just take a minute. Like, did this really happen?
Yeah.
I'm looking at my quiver and going, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh God, yeah, I shot. And then I just get my composure back, because I'm just I'm all business, but now I'm just just this shaking mess. And so then I think I called my cell phone to the guys, or I just got on the squawk box, and I said, hey, I just shot an exceptional deer. I just shot a buck. And they're like, is it the Big Ten? Because actually there's a couple of the guys had actually seen this deer few days throughout the course of the hunt. And the one guy, Craig Shim, had actually seen him. He was back at the truck, had seen him cross the upper field before he got down to me. And of course you can't do anything. It's not like, and you don't want anybody talking on stuff, because it'll screw everything up, because that's about the time something there. Yeah. So I just got a good one. And they're asking me, and I said, I don't know how big it is. It could be a 2-pointer or a 20-pointer. I just know it's big. I didn't want to overanalyze. I just knew it was a shooter. And so they're like, well, should we come down? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
We're going to give it time. We're going to give it a lot of time. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going to pack myself really, really slow, and I'm going to walk out, and, I'll walk back to the truck, and we'll meet up there. So that's what I did. I tried to see my arrow with binos, and I couldn't, and I didn't. Everything's super loud and crunchy. The
Yeah.
leaves are super. So I waited there at least 30 or 40 minutes. Then I got out of the tree, and then I just walked out, got back to the truck, and the guys are, asking me what happened, and, how how I thought the shot felt, and all that. And they're like, come on, oh, he's dead. He's dead. Well, let's go. Let's go. I'm like, no, let's just give him a little time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about giving time
Yeah.
to think. If you don't see it tip over, why chance it?
Right.
So we get down there, and, I'm like, okay, it's got to be right about here, and this and that. Oh, got blood, and so we're looking, and then we found the arrow, and that looked good. We go up the embankment. We're kind of looking around. Now it goes in the corn, and we're trailing in the corn. And then Wayne Kruger was just ahead of me. Of course, I had my bow, and I'm knocked up,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, is he or not?
Yeah.
And he says, Frank, Wayne saw him first, and he goes, "You shot a booner, man. You shot a booner." And is he? I could see him there, and it was kind of cool because he kind of was like he was standing, and he just collapsed. So he was just laying down, and his nose was in the dirt, and his rack was just sticking above the dirt. And I'm like, is he dead? Because that's like, it looks like he's about ready to bolt out of there.
Right.
And like, he's dead. He's dead. So Wayne, like, pretty much, wrestled me, bum rushed me, and was, hugging me. And I just went over to the front of him, and I sat down, and I'm just like, I was speechless.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm just in total awe of this animal. And that's one of those moments. And I've had, several thereafter. And, basically, as we start looking at more of these photos, that is exactly the thing that I want everybody to experience, is that it's unbelievable. I mean, there's so much emotion rushing through you.
Mm-hmm.
In an animal like this, it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's a bummer, but, he's, 6 to 7 years of age. Um, he was at the end of his life cycle.
Yeah.
So for him to have multiple more years, it would be really hard on him. And I think that's something too, where people don't take in account. So it's like, it's sad, but yet it's a fulfilling moment. And I know that, he got to go out on a high,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, struggling, potentially starving to death, and being, struck down by some coyotes and stuff, and going out in a horrible fashion,
Right.
and that's the thing too. Like with all my mounts they're not bragging rights by any means. They're just, when I see those things, those memories come back to me, and I just treasure every single one of them,
Mm-hmm.
all those experiences. And you're going to see, animals of various sizes and shapes in here. I go to my first bear that I ever harvested. I mean, I look like I'm a teenager, but I'm not. Um, and that was really cool. That was in Hinckley, Minnesota, and super stoked about that. Came in, I shot him at like 20 yards, and he went up into the cornfield, and I had to track him in there, and I was by myself, and that was a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm.
It was super fun. Here's a last day of the year hunt. It was so cold out. Had to be about 30, 40 below. And this was a deer that was injured. So this was a specific target to get. He had been hit by a car earlier in the year, and he was just really failing. Matter of fact, when I scun him out and stuff, the meat was tainted green. So, I mean, that, just talking about horribly, passing away, that was it. But that deer was, the last day of the season, and he was coming in. I saw him, and I couldn't turn in the seat I couldn't turn in the stand because it was popping. It was that cold.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a ping, super loud, and it was, so quiet. So I had to turn, and these are some different things that with, that's why leagues are good.
Yeah.
Go do leagues, get out the vapor trail and do leagues this winter and get involved with that. It was a twisting shot. So it was like my feet were forward and I had to turn all the way to the back and make that shot happen.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't move my feet because there was either a bolt loose or something in the stand platform that made that pop. So I was able to harvest him. And so that was pretty cool to make that all happen. And well, here's my first.
I want to go back to your Illinois buck real quick.
Absolutely.
Because, you talking about just, the reaction that Wayne had. Was it Wayne or Danny that you were?
Wayne.
It was Wayne. So just the reaction that he had and, just the emotions that you have and everything like that. Like you probably saw it, but on my social media page, I recently just did like a 3-part series on that buck. And it's funny how like you remember every single detail, like right down to like every frame of, if I could replay the video in my head, like I can remember every frame except for when I launched the arrow. And then, but then I like blacked out. And then all of a sudden I came back to when I saw the arrow didn't go where I wanted it to. But either way, it's like, it's funny how I can't remember what I did last weekend, but I can remember every single detail of that hunt and I'll never forget it, and so going back to your experience with that Illinois buck, I mean, just, and so cool that, Wayne was there with you to kind of share in that moment. And I don't consider myself to be a trophy hunter, but when there's just something that takes over but you can't even, you're speechless. You can't move. Your body goes numb. You almost have an out of body experience. I did not have a clue what the antler size was. Same as you, I just knew it was big and I was not going to hesitate. And, it's just, it's a feeling that is indescribable.
Exactly. And it's magical. And every essence of the word magical.
Yeah.
And, anybody who puts their time and effort and research into anything, and I tried to get to know my game and the things that I'm pursuing, try to get to know them and their background and what they do and what triggers. Cause I want to see, my whole thing is like, if I see the animals on a hunt, I figure that is total success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if I'm not seeing them at all, it's like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I need to change some things because this sucks. I mean, I love, I'll look at butterflies and flowers and stuff, but it's nice to at least see some game that you're pursuing in amongst all that experience. But
it's such a big part of it. Like you're saying, just knowing that that you have the ability to put yourself in a position where you're seeing deer, and when you're not, then you're kind of questioning, what am I doing? And any time spent in the tree is better than a lot of situations. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, and there's a time to, move, get aggressive, and it's knowing when, and that's, that's over time you learn those different things. And again, just talking to people and gaining that knowledge. But yeah, it's for me, being out and just seeing an animal of this quality is just, that's the trip right there. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. An animal of this caliber is, when they walk out, man, they have such a presence. They just own this.
Yeah.
Just the whole tone changes. And that's where, it's like, man, I just want everybody to experience it. Any whitetail hunter that, puts their time in and has done that, I want them to experience it because it's so cool.
Yeah. And
you're just like, man, this is one bad animal.
And you shot this buck in 2003, and then you started shooting or like started hunting when you were 6. So that's how many
Yeah.
years is that? I mean, not trying to
Oh,
date you or age you or anything, but
no. I'll be 56 in March. So that's 50 years of basically being involved in the outdoors, which is like insane to say, but
so
yeah.
what's the how many years until you shot this buck in Illinois from when you started hunting?
I was, let's see. Oh, geez. I don't know if I'm trying to do mental math here, which is kind of crazy. So if we subtract, let's do some math. Good Lord, I can't believe I can't figure this out, on the fly. Well, this is so dumb. Gosh, I can't get to my stupid calculator.
So how old were
20,
you in 2003?
yep. Subtract 2003. So I wasn't 20 years old. Is that right? No. It's 2023, subtract 2003. Yeah, it's saying I'm 20.
So 30. So yeah,
30.
because that was 20 years ago that you shot that buck. That's so crazy to think, but that was 20 years ago when you shot that buck. You've been in it for 50. So 30
Yeah.
years in the outdoors and
Yeah.
countless hours and time spent behind a bow and a rifle and just all of those things, for this. And for me, it was like 22 years. So, it's yeah, to come across an animal of that caliber is, it's almost like winning the lottery, and that's not to say that it didn't have anything to do with your abilities to put yourself in the right position, but even you can do everything in your power to put yourself in the right position, and you still may, the fact that that animal walked within range of you to take a shot and then everything fell into place. It's like winning the lottery.
It absolutely is. There's different scoring, methods. There's Pope and Young and there's Boone and Crockett, and anybody who's harvested a Boone and Crockett, that's definitely like winning the lottery. And there's people out there that have harvested a lot of Boone and Crockett's, but you have to look at the amount of time and effort. Lee and Tiffany Lukoski, you start to talk about the celebrities that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And people get a little little defensive on like, well, they, it's like, no, I know that they work very hard to create the habitat and then letting animals go, in the 150s, 160s all the time, and their neighbors can shoot them. Those animals don't just stay on their property. They try to create environments that they will, but that's through, a ton of money and countless hours. I know, and I've talked to Lee at different shows and stuff, and that guy is just like a guru of whitetail and whitetail management and habitat. And so there's a lot in there, So for like an average guy, kind of just doing this. We kicked around, we found this property, and that's budget type stuff.
Yeah.
That it's even more rewarding. I guess your encounters lessen, when you're doing this on a budget and trying to up your game, because then you're letting a lot of stuff go too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that I've harvested. I don't, I'd like to shoot a Pope and Young or better. And I know now the last couple of times that I've been out, like I got to go last year and I had a lot of Pope and Young bucks out in front of me. And I don't know. It's really weird. I look at them now and I'm like, man, you could have some potential, but there's no guarantees. And like where we're hunting in Illinois now, it's like we really don't see the same deer from year to year, but there's some great animals. I did get on at full draw on a 150-inch whitetail last year, which we would have went 4 for 4, but I wasn't able to send the arrow because it was just behind a tree, and I couldn't make that happen, and I didn't want to force the shot, so I let him walk, and then he ended up getting harvested by the neighbor the very next day. So I was super happy for him because that's how that stuff goes. but at least I had an encounter, right?
Right.
And I have tons of encounters. I've got, on my cell phone, I got, videos, and I shared that on Facebook and stuff too. And I do that throughout when I am on my hunting adventures, I try to share all that so people can kind of get my perspective and see that stuff. And a lot of time, half the time they're just like, oh, you should take that one. You should have shot that one. It's like, well, he's not quite Pope and Young, or man, he kind of looks cool. I don't know. I just, in the moment, it's just, and that's what I'm trying to do a little bit too, is just kind of raise the bar a little bit. And because the thing is too, is if I'm letting some stuff go, that could be a great experience for someone else.
Yep.
And then I'm also hoping that, they start upping their bar a little bit. That can just be future stuff for someone else. It's kind of like paying it forward. I love eating whitetail. I'll shoot all the does I want, and they fill the freezer and they taste the same. And it's kind of tough where, now we're kind of segueing to management, but, and you should earn your wings.
Yeah.
And that's good, because that's the thing too. You need to harvest animal and game to, when the moment comes on something like this, you can make it happen. Because I've known people that have froze right up.
Oh yeah.
Didn't even get their bow back, and they were almost outside of their body and lost total control of the situation. It was like, it just blew their mind.
Yeah, and I don't know why that mentality is so common. I did the same thing. I rifle hunted with my dad for many years, and then when I finally got into doing things with a bow, I had this mentality that I was only going to shoot a big buck. That was going to be my plan, and I was going to let small bucks walk, even though I hadn't really shot any small bucks with a gun. I just don't know why I had that mindset. And then when the opportunity came, I couldn't even draw my bow back. And so, and it's funny because just, a couple weekends ago, I was up north with some family at a wedding. My cousin's daughter's boyfriend just started getting into bow hunting, and he went right to the recurve. And he was talking about how he had watched a lot of does going by. And I said, man, you got to let one of those does have it, because and he's like, well, I don't want to burn my buck tag on a doe. And I said, well, you can get a bonus doe tag, it's $26. I was like, heck, talk to, Justin, who's my cousin. I'm like, talk to him. I'm sure he'll give you the money for the tag. Cause he wants him to shoot it, cause it's on his property. So he wants him to shoot a deer for him. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that, and then now if a doe comes by, I'm like, you're going to want to start flinging some arrows, because it's, you got to get a few under your belt before you even think about trying to maintain your composure when the giant comes walking by. And so,
and you're hitting it. I've had these conversations with people, because it's, right away they want to be like, hey, I'm going to go out of state, and and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's like, you really need to spend some time, you need to start harvesting, to go turkey hunting here.
Yeah.
Shoot those does, grab all the tags you can, and start doing that, because what has happened, they saved up every dime that they could, and they went on a guided hunt, and for whatever, elk or whitetail or whatever. And when the moment came, they just froze up. They didn't even understand what happened. And I'm like, it's experience.
Yeah.
You need the experience. That's what I was talking about. And that's the other thing is, when that happens to people, then they get defeated and they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is what I didn't want for you to happen. You got to kind of ease into it and gain some experience, and then you're going to know. And then when the time comes, it's going to just be systematic, and you're going to know what to look for, even after the shot, and when the animal takes off, how to then, retrieve the animal.
Yeah.
There's so many little things, but they just, all of a sudden they want to jump. Yeah, I'm going to go start. It's like, oof. mean, that's great. I mean, you're really starting to pound the paper. That's great. But you need, I mean, you need to, go to 3D shoots and put yourself, have 20 people looking at you shoot and, get yourself in the limelight,
For sure.
and that's something that I've always tried to do is just force myself into those situations so that I
Yeah.
can make that happen. And all this other stuff, like my first bear and this deer that we talked about. Let me get to, there's my first doe with the bow.
That's so cool.
Back in the day, that again. I remember that arrow. That's out of a Jennings Carbon Extreme XLR,
There you go.
and those are some looms. I think those are XX75s shafts.
Aluminum.
And
Love it.
yeah, it was kind of raining out, and let's see. I think I was dating Jody at the time, and we were out in the rain. She was kind of coming around with me, and I saw that doe, and I'm like, oh, we got to go down through the draw and come back up to get to where we can shoot that doe. We did. I kind of felt so bad. I went through a bunch of junk, and then I snuck through, but it was cool. It was 30 yards, and again, I had that big old orange knock, and she's standing there broadside, and the rain it's just kind of lightly raining, and I drew back and sent that arrow, and I just see that orange knock just disappear and fly out the other side in the dirt, and it was all slow-mo, and then it just sped up. I watched her hit the cornfield and run down it, and she ran down the road maybe like 60 yards and piled up and was dead. And I was just like, why? I just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Just, it was so cool. So very cool.
Hey, Frank, I'm going to pee my pants here.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take a quick break. I'm just going to keep it recording or whatever, but I'm just going to run, take a leak real quick.
Sure.
Be right back.
Cool. Yeah. Cell phone. I still got it. Really? Oh, I think I tossed it. No. Oh.
And I'm back.
Ew.
All right. All right, here we go. Got a nice carp here.
Yeah. So this is back in the day, a little carp fishing. That's always fun to do. This is a South Dakota buck. That was actually, I was pretty pleased with that little bugger. I was with a buddy of mine, and we went out, didn't know. We had turkey hunted the spot, and he just wanted to go out. I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you. And it was out of a ground blind, so it was like the last. I think we had 2 days left. I mean, there was deer on. We just couldn't get in on them. So I seen this block of woods up from this draw, So I went in there and threw a blind up because I'd been seeing some deer activity out of the one kind of crossing through that little woodlot. And he came in. That was pretty neat. It was 30 yards and put the smoke to him. So that was pretty cool. There's a Minnesota buck.
That's a good one. Heavier.
Came up. Yeah. And then we'll jump to here's a wide Illinois buck. He's like 21 inch inside spread on that dude. That was kind of cool. I'd seen him in the morning out of another stand, and he moved into a block with 2 does into this little woodlot. There's like a cedar thicket there. So then I moved a stand to that spot, and then the evening I did an evening sit, and I heard him grunt down in the bottom of the cedars, and I did a slight calling sequence, vocal stuff, and he actually came up and he came right underneath the tree stand, and he's just standing there because there's a fence that he's got to jump to get out into this field, this clover field. And I'm looking at him like, oh my God, he's so wide. I hadn't seen anything that wide ever. And so when he jumped the fence and was out, I think I shot him at like 10 yards. And then he did a burn across the field and just died across this little field road. So that was really cool. Then I did a little antelope hunting there and over in Wyoming. That was such a fun hunt. Antelope hunting is, if you got to get out and at least do it once. And, I've done all mine out of a ground blind.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I've never done the spot and stock. And here's another nice goat that I shot in Wyoming. Let's see, the one prior was probably like 67. This dude was 71, I think. Wow. Let's see. I wish these all would have grouped because that would have been so nice. Because then I'll show you this is the one I shot 3 years. He's 78.
Wow, you're a sniper.
So he's about pushing 80 inches. Of course they don't do these kickers there.
Yeah.
So they're like an inch a piece on that. But yeah, this
really
hunt
cool.
was another Wyoming over in Gillette, and it was a last day of the hunt. I had already logged 100 hours in the blind because I'd come from Colorado, came home, and we went out.
Wow.
And hunted all week. And he came in. It was a morning hunt. I saw him at about 150 yards, and it was really cool because it was that new technology with the see-through blinds. And he came in. When he first came in, he was like 10 yards just from the blind.
Oh.
So then he's walking through, and I had my bow, and I'm like, I got to get him to stop. But I don't want to grunt at him because that can make him spook. So I'm like, you have to wait.
Yeah.
So there was a transition from where I was because there was some water, that there was a rise to a alfalfa field. So he stopped, and I had already ranged it. It was 42 yards. So he stopped at the top of that, and I drew on him again, just burning the pin through him, and the release went off and smoked him. It hit his opposite shoulder. That's why there's no exit you can see there, because it was the opposite side. And he did the old turn and burn and went 70 yards and piled right up. But that was super cool. When I walked over to him, that was like, wow. Because I knew he was good, but I didn't think he was that good.
Yeah. He's
like
big.
Pretty darn sweet.
And that is a pronghorn antelope. Was that Wyoming as well?
Yep. Okay. Yep. I did. See, I think I got another one. Here's my one in Colorado that I had shot. Which again, I should have waited on that one. That was like 62 inches. Which back in the day, that would actually have been Pope and Young, but the pronghorn stuff has changed so much over the years.
Yeah. Okay.
With the advent of all that. But I'm going back here. So here's another Illinois buck. That was pretty cool. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of garbage on the bottom. Younger, it's weird. He's like probably a 3.5-year-old deer.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at his face and stuff.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. I had some photos of him.
Yeah. Broken
Here's a
off.
caribou. Here's a caribou hunt thing I was on. That was pretty cool. This was a last day deal as well. The caribou, I'll tell you what, that shook me. I drew on some other bulls, and I actually had some shots, and I just, they were so big. Like, of course, their antlers are the largest, scoreable antlers in North America, and they got to me. It was really weird. It was really weird. John Schaefer was actually on the same hunt.
Yeah.
I was there, watched him shoot a really nice bull, and actually this barren ground stuff. If you ever see any of his advertising stuff, I actually took those photos.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and sent them back to him. He's like, "Hey, can you send those to me?" And then I went to ATA, and it was on his backdrop and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, I remember that."
That's cool.
So it was pretty cool in some of his advertising stuff. But yeah, This was neat. It was really weird. We saw the bull. We were in a boat from there. You just can't have the motor on. So he had shut the motor off, and we coasted for, oh God, like 50 yards. And I ranged the bull. It was at 60. And because I was just figuring out the tempo of the boat moving, like how much distance was actually losing. So I actually put the pin at 55 yards. I was at full draw and sent it, and I double lunged it.
Nice.
And it ran and tipped over.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And my guide was like, "You could make that shot, but you couldn't make those other shots." I said, "Well, I don't know. I guess I had other things going on in my head that distracted me, which made things work up."
Right.
But yeah. Caribou, that was, man, if a guy could go back and do that, I would love it. I mean, it was just, the northern lights were absolutely beautiful. I got to see a wolverine on the very first day. Go over and there was a carcass of a caribou that he ripped the leg off and ran off with, and I got all the other guys in our group to see it. That was pretty cool. And the migration, super cool. Watch them swimming across the lakes and stuff. And just unbelievable.
I don't know. Did you already say where were you at when you shot this caribou?
This was in Manitoba, north of Manitoba.
Okay.
Up by there's the division line that's up there. That's actually, what is the marker? What's like a tundra marker type thing.
Okay.
So really far, far, far north.
Yeah.
It was a fly-in deal.
It's awesome.
Here's another Lindstrom buck, 6-pointer.
There you go.
Harvested back in the day.
Hometown buck.
Yeah, here's an access deer. Very good eating. That's a Texas hunt. Here's another Illinois buck from a few years ago. That was a pretty cool deer.
Very symmetrical.
Yeah, he came. I grunted. Let's see, that was first morning hunt. He come in. I did a grunting sequence just after first light, and it was in a really cool draw, and there was a lot of oak trees in the draw, and it just a lot of travel corridors, and it was tore up, and I did a calling sequence, and he come up over the adjacent ridge. So he came up and he was coming down, and he stopped about midway, and he kind of looked, and then he was coming, and he stopped at the base of my tree. So I'd already drawn, and I anchored down, so I shot him from the top down. So and then he went over, he ran through the draw, and he ran up the other side, and he died at the top of that. So which I was thankful for.
Yeah.
Real big bodied deer to get him out of there. We actually broke the carrier on Danny Kruger's side by side getting him out.
Wow.
Which was crazy. And then this 8-pointer, that's another Illinois buck.
That one.
And that was crazy because Wayne Kruger shot a really nice 8-pointer the night before, and we always make it kind of a thing, like the next day we're going to take pictures and stuff. Of course, he was already field dressed and stuff, and so we're going to meet up at 10 o'clock. So It was getting close. It was getting to be 10 o'clock. And there was some movement. There was some decent movement, but, it kind of slacked off. So I gathered all my stuff and I sent my bow down. And one thing about Wayne Kruger, that guy, now the guy has invented a ton of different things for hunting and gadgets and stuff. So on my pole rope, he fashioned like these little hooks that hook, so you can let your bow down, unhook it, and then you retrieve it's on an auto reel deal, an easy hoist deal. So you can go back up and then you can send your pack down because the less things that you have on your body, in a tree stand, it's just kind of a safety thing, which we'll touch on that on another deal. But so I let the bow down, and I always try to like situate the bow like it's leaning. I don't know why. Well, I don't want the cams in the dirt, basically.
Yep.
So I try to get it so it's pivots on the stabilizer and the arrows can flex. I don't really care about that. So I got down and I zip up the hoist, and I'm kind of bent over, and we have it's a porter rail that's on there. It's an actual railing system that mounts to the tree. So I bent over and I was looking, and I look forward and I see him, and he's just walking the edge of the wood line. And I'm looking at him going, oh man, no, this can't be happening. I was just like, shooter. And I like paused for a second. Well, what do I do? It's like, well, I got to get my bow. So I reel the bow deal all the way down. Now, mind you, our stands are anywhere from 22 to 30 feet up, and I was probably at 25. So I'm trying to get the hook back down, the rope, and of course I'm letting it down, and I'm looking because I want to keep tabs on where he's at. So I get the hook down there, and I did a little swing, and I hooked my cam on the first try. So then I'm reeling the bow up because now he's coming through, and there's a trail that comes toward me that'll go down past me. So now he's over there, and there is a scrape over there. So now he's hitting the scrape. So I'm frantically, I get the bow, I put that back, had to put my release back on. I had to knock an arrow, and I'm like, this is not going to happen, but I'm trying not to push anything, trying not to freak out. And, I get everything, and now he's just going to leave because he's already staged, and now he wants to go, and he's going to cut across. There's like a short corner on the edge of the field that he wants to cross. So I'm like, well, I got to do something. So I grab my grunt tube, and that's one thing too, like with calling sequences, don't just call at them.
Yeah.
You want to call, like I turn my body and I get the call away. Like I want it to make it sound like it's back down in the draw behind me, so that I'm trying to pull him to me, right? Because it's like, yelling at, it's like, no, I'm calling from down here, because you can actually do that with calls. You can position things to make things, you can pseudo direct the animal.
Yeah.
And of course I'm crossing my fingers because it's like, well, he already came through, he already looked, he's basically already scanned the area. So I did a couple, and I didn't, and don't blast. He's already there. Always start soft on your calling, and then you can gradually get louder. Especially when you're starting a calling sequence, and if you don't know any animals there, always think that there is an animal there. Start soft, get louder. So I just couple soft grunts, and he jerked his head around, and I'm like, I put the call away. So now he got curious enough where he turned. Now he's coming to me. Mind you, he's probably about 70 yards. Now he's coming. So I'm like, all right, this is really cool. So now he's either going to come walk down past me at 5 yards and go down in this draw, or there's a trail that goes to my left, which that would be ideal. And that'll be like a 5-yard shot. And then there's another trail at about 23 yards that cuts and goes across. So he comes up, and of course there's always one tree, right?
Yeah.
So there's a tree that's about this big around at like 20 yards. So he walks up, and he stopped basically behind that tree. And now he's looking around. I can see antlers and then antlers on each side of the tree. I'm like, man, he's not going to come down here. He's just not, because now he can see.
Yeah.
Why he's not going to, and I can't do that. He's
Yeah.
too close. So he pivots and he's turning, and now he's going back, and now my heart's back sinking. And that's one thing with these encounters. You want to be on the most weirdest adrenaline rush ride. This is it, because you are at the ultimate highs and ultimate lows, back to the ultimate highs, back to the ultimate lows within nanoseconds. So now he's walking away, and for some reason he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna cut off this other trail at 23 yards and cut across." Well, I saw where he was going. I saw his body start to turn that way, so I came to full draw. I already knew what the yardage was, and I think I had it on 20 yards, but I knew it was like 23. So, I mean, again, with the speed and everything, there's minimal amount of drop at that yardage.
Yep.
So, yeah, he came in. I erped one time. He stopped perfect broadside, sent the arrow, double lung, ran up, jumped the fence, and just died on the other side of the fence. So then I had to call the guys and say, "Hey, it looks like we're going to have I'm a little late because I just shot a real nice 8-pointer and they're like, what?" So they're all stoked. And that's one thing too with this crew of guys. We're all helping each other because we all want everybody to get these encounters and harvest these animals. So that was super, super cool.
Yeah.
To have around.
I love that, everything you had to go through to get, to make that all happen, right? And I've always kind of joked about that too, because so many of the encounters I've had, it's when I'm screwing around. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not focused, I'm not paying attention. And so I've joked about that a few times where I'm like just sitting there quietly, patiently, not moving. And then I'm like, what the problem is I'm not screwing around doing something I shouldn't be doing. And so, of course, then it doesn't pan out that way either. But it's interesting how that can happen, and I love that you were able to get that all together and, make it happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just crazy, just totally crazy. Well, here's a vermilion bear right here.
That's a big bear.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. He's about 300 pounds. My buddy has a cabin up on Vermilion, and we had to do everything by boat, all the baiting and stuff, which was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a good experience to do that. And I had gone up there for years and stuff, and just to help him out, which was pretty cool. Yeah. So here's a stag. This was in New Zealand back in the day.
Red stag.
That was a fun hunt. Nice. Yeah, that was a fun hunt. There was chamois and tar running around because it was some steep stuff and some elk and whatnot. So, matter of fact, where is my elk here? So I harvested this elk on the same hunt.
Oh my gosh.
Which is on the wall here. So over in New Zealand, see, their elk will crossbreed with stags because this is considered a South Pacific animal.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, he's massive and really cool. He's on the wall here at the end of the range. And super cool. I mean, those are those experiences that you treasure to the nth degree. Then here's another Illinois buck. That was a cool hunt too. This ridge, he came in, just steep draw, and it was a morning deal, and I actually called him in from a ways out, and he come in and got him to stop at like 25 yards and sent the arrow, and he tipped over. I got to see him nestled up into a tree, which was absolutely cool.
Good 10-point whitetail there.
Yeah. And then here's a younger 8-pointer. This dude was this was an Illinois buck. This was kind of more back in the day. I'd actually shot him over a decoy, and I shot him at 50 yards.
Oh, wow.
He came in all bristled up, and he was going to tune that decoy up. And that was kind of my first experience with decoys. So I got super excited, but I absolutely pounded that deer. And he went down in a draw. Uh, that was super cool.
Mm.
And here's a South Dakota Tom, a Miriam.
Yeah, it looks like a Miriam's.
Here's a Minnesota Jake.
Jake.
Kind of was cool. This I did some self filming. Had been running all over Minnesota trying to kill a turkey, and I actually killed this bird at 60 yards.
Wow.
I self filmed it.
That's
I've got
awesome.
that filming around here somewhere. And they do have 2 black powder kills,
Okay.
believe it or not. Okay, so now this was really weird because I hadn't. This is in Illinois again. And in Illinois, you can shoot one with archery and one with a firearm. We had just always gone down for the archery. Well, the opportunity we could hunt the gun season, and it's slugs or muzzleloader. So I got that muzzleloader.
Yeah.
And it was weird because I'm sitting in the tree, and it's, again, this was a first morning hunt, and he came walking in, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, oh, he's a good buck, I'll take him, and he's at like 75 yards, and I'm just like, come on, keep coming, and I'm like, dummy, you have a rifle, you're sighted into 150 yards with this thing.
Let him have it.
It was really weird though. I was all like, you hadn't killed anything with a rifle, whitetail in ages. So I grabbed it and, I settled the crosshairs on it. And when I touched it off, of course, my ears are ringing and there's smoke. I can't see anything. And the deer is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because now you go from this, and it's super quiet. I mean, you can hear a flea fart from a mile away, type of thing. And now I just touch this off, and it sounds like a bomb going off in the woods. And I just totally lost perspective of how that all goes down.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the smoke goes off, and I'm kind of looking around. I got my binos and stuff. I'm going, well, reload.
Yeah.
So like I'm doing the whole grabbing things and shoving things down the barrel and hanging it back up. So I'm trying to look and all that stuff. So I mark, okay, well, here's the time. Well, I'm going to wait a half an hour. And of course, meanwhile, we're all like, what the heck? Texting, what was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just shot. I think I got one, and I'll let you know. You guys just keep hunting because it's the morning hunt and stuff. And I said, I'm going to wait about half an hour before I even get down out of the stand. So I got everything gathered and got things down from the stand, and I walked over there and I see the blood, and that blood trail. If he only went like 40 yards and he was laying there, he was just out of sight of the ridge. So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I was like so tuned about that, just jacked up. And then this dude was another muzzleloader hunt.
I remember that.
And that was a last day hunt. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit down. It was literally the fence line. And there was like some cedar trees that were along there. So I just sat under it. It was the last evening sit. And there was a group of like 10 deer that came out. And I looked at him. I'm like, oh, he's really cool looking, and he'll make Pope and Young, So I ranged him, and he was like at 156 yards. And I had my little tripod and stuff, so I got all nestled up on that. And they were out in this field, and it was muddy, super muddy. But they were out there just eating the greens that were on top of it, because this was in Illinois. Of course, you get back home, and it's snow, because it was last day deal. I didn't get any photos until I got home. And so he's out there, and I'm watching him and range it, stand there broadside. And I touched the shot off, and he wheeled up, and his front end went down, and then he just like did a bulldozing thing, and there was mud flying everywhere from his hind legs. And he did like a 50-yard trench and was dead. Just laying there dead. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. So that was pretty cool. And then let's see here. Let's see, we got that. Another coyote. I've I've been pretty lucky. I've probably harvested about 7 or 8 coyotes over the years with my bow.
Mm.
Here's a Minnesota 8-pointer.
Yeah.
Wisconsin. That's when those first came out. Those decoys.
The full strut.
The mobile ones, I believe they are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a
Shot 'em over that.
Minnesota. This is a Minnesota turkey, right?
This is a Wisconsin bird. This
Oh,
is an eastern
Wisconsin.
bird. Yeah. And then here's a Nebraska. Some toms there that I shot. Then we get into shooting a elk.
There you go.
Colorado. Some cows. I went there and did that. And here's my first Illinois buck I shot back in the day. This was kind of an interesting story. I had a buddy that was actually where this tree line ends. There's the opposite side of this field. He was set up, and he had this buck come in. It was opening day, or first day of our trip.
Mm.
And he watched him. It came in, made a scrape, did all of its fun stuff, and then it made its way over through the standing cord, and I'm down on the other end. So this is like 500 yards across.
Mm.
And I was on a different pinch spot, and that was one of those things too. There was a scrape down below me at like 10 yards, super quiet, just absolutely quiet. He comes, I could hear the crunch, and and there was the steam coming out of his nose before I even saw the rack.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes through, and I'm like, oh, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, it's a solid 10-pointer. Man,
Yeah.
I'm gonna all right. His neck was, just blown out.
Yeah,
Just,
I'm looking at his neck, and I'm like, holy mackerel, he is.
yeah, he was just all blown out. It was like 32 inches around his neck or something. It was just like insane.
makes his antlers look smaller than they probably are.
Yeah, he grosses like one in the 140s.
Yeah.
Like 142 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in there, and I'm like, well, he's right there at 10 yards. And so I grab my bow, and it's just one of those beautiful scene things too. The sun's coming up, so you got all the frost on the corn stalks and the heat that's coming out. And when he came in, he's got the mist coming out of his nostrils, and he's over there working the scrape at 10 yards. And I'm like, oh, so cool. And he's rubbing his orbital glands on there, and I get back, and it's super quiet, and I shoot and double lung, and he turns and he runs, jumps the fence. He goes down along because there's another creek there, and he goes to make one last ditch effort to jump across, but there was a log there. He hit the log, did a flip, and he went kind of splash, the loudest splash in the water. And then there was about 30 turkeys in the trees behind me, and everything just woke up right after that. So you go from this really calm, peaceful, zen-like moment to just total chaos. So it was pretty cool. So I'd seen him. I knew he was done, and Craig was like, yeah, I had him at he goes, I just didn't, first day, I said, keep passing him up, man.
Yep.
I'll do on the first day every day.
Yeah.
Every single day. And
boy, there's a monster.
Yeah, that one grossed at 162. That was that's my first Pope and Young buck. So that happened back in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1999. Yeah. So, and that was really cool because I was living in Harris, Minnesota, and down along the river, and I got to know the neighbors, and there was a batch. There was probably, I'm not lying, and I have video. I've got video of a lot of stuff just kind of stashed around, but I know down where I lived and the couple neighbors over, I would drive every night, and the one night I counted at least it was 14 or 15 different Pope and Young.
Oh, wow.
Bucks. Yeah. This dude hung out with a bachelor group of 3. And I got, and I kept, letting the one neighbor know, because they were that's their key area, was on his properties that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to know me over a couple years, and he said, and he didn't allow bow hunting. They just gun hunted, and I would just share all the information, all the video, and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
he just knew that I loved whitetail.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, do you ever want to, you know, hunt my property?" I said, "I would I would give you just about anything to be able to do that."
Yeah.
I said, "And I don't want to hunt the whole season." I said, give me a week.
Yeah.
Just give me a week." And he says, "Done. You can hunt anywhere on the property." So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Cool. I know exactly where I want to go."
Yeah.
There was a couple fields and a slough and like an oak thicket, and it hubbed together. And that's where I would see these. They were always around this hubbed area.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was opening day season. I hunted one spot, didn't see much. Again, it keyed into where I was thinking it was going to be. So I think it was the next day or something. I got in there and put a sit up, and I did that midday, and I hunted it that night. So it was day 2 or day 3 of the 7 days that I had to hunt, and I'm sitting there in the evening. It was perfect. It was a little warm because you got this whole September thing, but then, and these deer are in their summer patterns yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they were kind of still bachelored together. And I was watching the slough. You're panning left and right, but you're trying not to physically move, because that's just, you don't want to be doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
so I moving my eyes back and forth, and I catch something to my right, and so I focus more on it, and here's this dude standing there down in the slough about 100 yards. So I grabbed the binos. I said, "Yep, I know that deer." And he's with those other guys. And the other two that he was with, there was one that he was with that, and again, I have a video of all this stuff, that I know that he had at least a 24-inch inside spread,
Wow.
and he was absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Minnesota record type quality
Mm-hmm.
animal, just an absolute giant. And matter of fact, when he was in velvet, he would run across the field. It almost looks like he had so much weight on his head that every time he would land, it looked like he was going to fall over, do a flip.
Oh, wow.
That's just an absolute heavy giant buck.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, getting back to him. So I'm just watching him, and, he's kind of like eating, and then he'd be looking back, and he'd be eating, and he'd be looking back. And, of course, now we're burning some sunlight. We're getting more into that magic time. And I'm like, well, I got to make something happen. And I'm looking at him, just kind of looking at his body gestures. And I'm like, well, he's by himself. It's looking like he's waiting for his buddies.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed my grunt call, and I pointed it past me, because he's over here. I want him to come to me. So I'm not going to call at him. I'm going to call away from me to draw him, make him think like, well, they got ahead of me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Develop some curiosity. So I did a couple soft grunts, and he swung his head my way, and I put the call away. And then he waited for a minute or two. He's just kind of looking, because he can't see much because he's in that slough.
Mm-hmm.
Then he started angling toward me. So then I knew it was like 32 yards where I thought he was going to enter. And so he entered that, and it was, so I sent that arrow at 32 yards, and then he ran in and tipped over. I didn't get to see him tip over, but it was just surreal. I put the bow down, and I'm like, can't believe it, and have to look at my quiver and count the arrows and do all that fun stuff. And so I'd marked the time, waited a half an hour, because, now I'm losing light.
Mm-hmm.
So then I got my stuff together, and I walk over, and I find the arrow, And I'm like, I'm just going to walk out of here. Cause where he actually went was toward where I had entered the stand. So I walked the opposite way to the neighbor's house. And I, knocked on his door and told him, I said, I think I harvested a really good buck. And I said, I didn't want to walk to my vehicle, potentially spooking him. So that's why I came over. So he was all excited because we knew which deer it was and stuff. So we drove around and all that stuff, went and stalked him and found him and stuff. And he was just like, I can't believe you did this. He goes, I said, well, that's where it was a bittersweet moment too, because then that's where my opportunity ceased to be able to hunt because now because that's what I said. I said, you guys got to stop trying to do the brownest down and shoot every spike buck on the first day. And so that you can watch the Vikings game.
Yeah. Right.
you have quality animals here. There's no reason why you can't all be harvesting, 150-inch deer, 140 or better.
Yeah.
So then that's what happened though. So the very next year they started getting on better animals, which is great, but it was just a bummer that I couldn't continue to hunt.
Okay. I found this on the they started getting on better animals night, which
I guess Siri wanted to speak to me.
So I wanted to comment too, because you said this buck it's a
162 gross.
162 gross. And so for all intents and purposes, or 160 or better is Boone and Crockett, but now he's a 4x5. So that 1 point on the other side actually goes against you. So that dropped you below the 160 mark.
Oh yeah. No, it's so he actually scores a mainframe 8-pointer.
Yeah.
So that drops him down in the 140s.
Yeah.
As a net.
And that's huge for an 8-pointer.
Oh, you're dropping out because he's a wannabe 12-pointer actually, because he's got another bladed inner point here.
Okay.
But yeah, so he nets in the 140s, but he grosses 162. Yeah.
And gosh, look at that. That G2. That G2 is like, what is that? That's got to be over 12 inches.
Oh yeah,
right?
I think that's 12 inches. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, real dandy buck. I have a pedestal mount of him in the house. He's just absolutely beautiful.
And I love that, and that that early season kind of hide, like it just looks so clean. It's not, And then you got
it's all short hair yet. Yep.
You got the tried and true. Looks like a classic tree bark pack that you were using, and this is this is like when that stuff came out. This isn't a what do you call it, not a rebirth, but a re-release of a classic pattern. This is the pattern.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, and that material on there was the greatest thing to collect every single burr and sticker.
Yeah.
I had that soft, because I was all in and I still am. I don't like material noises.
Yeah.
Anything that whips against it, I don't want there to be a zip or a bang or a click. It should absorb noise.
Yeah.
So you don't have that
cool
stuff
buck
happening. There's another. I shot this. That was kind of cool. This was stock. I got this on video too. I harvested this elk at 42 yards.
And they are big, just crazy big.
Here's another Nebraska turkey out of the old bale blind.
The hay bale blind, yeah.
Which is super cool. And here's some more. And here's another.
Nebraska treated you well with turkeys.
Oh yeah. No, we harvested a few out there, and then this is a Minnesota bird here. Beautiful time. I believe I harvested that at my friend Tim Revis's house in Hudson, Minnesota.
Okay. Here's
another Illinois buck. And that brings us through this slideshow.
Man, that's a 56 photos you got in there.
Yeah.
That's an amazing track record for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy, and there's some stuff that's missing that I don't have. Like I've my bobcat, few other animals too. So, but no, I've been very fortunate to do what I've been able to do and travel to places. And I only look forward to continuing that
Right.
once I healed up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can't imagine, I'm a busybody too, and so man, it's been 3 years since your accident
yeah,
now.
May 9th of 2020. Yeah.
Okay. And again, we're gonna have another episode where we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's great that you've been, you're still in it, you're still involved. You were here for our pro shop grand opening, which was great. Good to see you. Now that you've moved over to Wisconsin, man, there probably wasn't I don't know. I mean, we shot leagues together, I mean, so I would see you fairly frequently. When I shot my Wisconsin bird, I stayed at your place for the
Mm-hmm.
weekend, although I don't think you were there. I don't think you guys were home.
I think you're correct. Yeah. Yeah.
But that
You're correct. Yeah.
that made me think too about that situation over where you said you were hunting that property where you shot that last buck you were just talking about, because
Mm-hmm.
it was one of the guys that used to work for us. He was a bowstring builder, and he had some property in Wisconsin, had some birds out there and stuff, and I said, well, hey, I'd love to just like come out there. And he was really struggling to get on a bird and all that kind of stuff. And I don't have a ton of experience, but I was like, hey, it'd be really fun. I'll come up there and join you, and, we can scout it, and I'll help you, I'll sit in the blind with you and film for you, and, see if I can help out. And, so in return, he said, yeah, if you want to, get a license and hunt turkeys out on the property too. My dad said that it was okay, and they were kind of giggling because they're like, the chances of you killing a turkey on this property with a bow is
Yeah.
very, very slim. And they were struggling doing it even with shotguns, So
Right.
yeah, the first year I went out there, I killed a bird, and then that was the end of it. That was the end of it. They're like, oh, it can be done. All right, well, sorry about it, but can't hunt here anymore.
Well, that's what's fun is people, to get on property. I mean, and that's a whole nother discussion too.
Yeah.
We can do that another day, but just how to gain access and how to do that. Because as a bow hunter, they think you're nuts.
Yep.
So they're like, most of the time, they're like, oh, you bow hunt. So if you can explain yourself and, you know, respect their property and their boundaries, with their lives and whatnot to be
Right.
able to gain access. So they're right away, you're kind of at a advantage because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's where, if you're putting your time in and practice, you're like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things happen,
Mm-hmm.
which is wonderful.
Well, I'm excited for when you get back out. I miss seeing and hearing all the great stories, and I pray for you to heal up quickly and get back out there, and so that's pretty exciting. I imagine
Yeah.
you're feeling the same way.
Oh, I'm going a little cuckoo. So yeah, no, I'll take all the prayers, all the good vibes that I can get from any of the viewers and stuff too. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
And again, ping me if anybody has any questions. It has been nice social media wise where I do get people that ask me questions and stuff. Um, I've even had them do it from their stands. They're like, "Hey, I'm hunting this, and I'm seeing this, and should I be rattling or should I be grunting or should I use scents and this and that?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to do that. It's especially now I'm chilling. I'm gonna be again. I'm gonna be bugging my buddies. They were bummed to hear that I'm like can't make it out because they were willing to just put up ground blinds and get me to and from.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't want to chance the healing process up.
Right.
I want to be back next year, stronger than ever. Or hobbling, able to hobble to get to where I need to because it's going to happen one way or another.
Yeah.
So there's a will, there's a way. So we'll figure something out. But I just need to get to where I'm healed to the point of this is it, and then I can make modifications to my life to accommodate because I do miss it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm happy to help. Whether you've got you know 3D. I mean, because I got a whole nother slideshow presentation of competition archery and all that fun stuff to get into. And tips and techniques of bow setting up, what you should look for in buying a bow, and reach out to me. I'll talk freely about products. I mean, just because I shoot for prime, I'm not going to say that's the best bow for you, and there's reasons for that. It's what works for me, and I really like it. I want you to try it, because that's the thing too. It starts at the riser, it starts at the grip, and then everything else will follow into suit with that. So I'll be honest about products and why I use what I use, and try to relate that to what you're doing. Happy to help.
Yeah. And so if people do want to message you or find you, where can they find you out on social media?
I'm on Instagram. It's Frank Welsh, just how my name is spelled, and Facebook, the exact same thing.
Perfect.
And of course, with Instant Messengers, it would just follow suit with that too. So
perfect. Awesome.
I don't have tricky handles or anything. So, but I've thank you for having me on. And,
absolutely.
I look forward to future podcasts. We'll talk about my accident and how that all relates into some tree stand safety factors, and because I've got a lot of time to reflect on that. I'll show you the whole sloppy mess of that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I would like to do that is just so I don't want that to happen to you, and then just talk about the aftermath of all that. But, we're just going to provide better safety and make sure that people can do this for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, good luck this fall. Make sure that you let us know on social media what you're doing.
Oh, you'll know. I'm sure you'll know. If I'm not too busy making sure the other 6 pages that I manage, if I can try to get some of my own personal stuff out there. But so that brings us to the end of this episode. Huge thanks, Frank. I really appreciate all your time, and look forward to having you on again. We've got some more stuff we want to talk about, so don't be a stranger. Absolutely. Man.
Well, thank you, and I'm just happy to be a part of the team. I always have been. It's nothing that I take lightly, so thank you for giving me the opportunity just to have a voice.
Certainly, man. Certainly, we appreciate you for sure. And if you want to find us, The Range Podcast, you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at ricky.wayne80 and on Facebook at Ricky W. Bruley. And don't forget to head over to the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and also hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. And with that, we are going to pack up our bows and we're hitting the range. Have a good day, everybody. Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.